Hello everyone, welcome back to Banking and Finance with Chitrak. Today we'll be discussing the second part of the fifth chapter of the anti-money laundering module, which is AML CFT legislation in India. So, in the last part, we discussed about the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which is the main act in our country against money laundering. Now, in this part, we'll begin with the prevention of money laundering rules. Now, PMLA is the act which governs the money laundering, and whereas PMLR are the rules to formulate under the PMLA to properly implement the act's provisions. So, what is the purpose of these rules? Like I said, it prescribes the procedures to properly implement the PMLA and is also important for banks to set up organizational structure for KYC AML aspects, and it became effective from the 1st July of 2005. Now, the rules have been amended a number of times, and most recently not in December 2020 but in 2023, and it was amended to incorporate changes made in the PMLA and revised FATF standards. Also, the recent amendment in PMLA expanded its scope to include the NGOs, and some new rules were made for reporting entities. Also, there was a stricter definition for the politically exposed persons. Now, we'll look into some important amendments made in the PMLA. So, basically, first, some modified definitions were made. Definitions for client due diligence, officially valid documents, and transactions were modified. Also, the definition of designated director was added in the PMLA or PMLR. Next, about cash transactions report, there was a clarification of the term series of integrally connected transactions. So, how to understand if a series of transaction is integrally connected? Now, you can understand if the series of transactions are connected by first noticing if the individual transactions are valued below rupees 10 lakh, and if the series is taking place within a single calendar month, and if the total of all the transactions in the series exceeds rupees 10 lakh. If all of these three conditions are followed, then you will know or understand that the transactions are obviously connected. Third, the reporting of the cross-border wire transactions and non-profit organization transactions were added. Next, the counterfeit currency reporting requirements are modified to monthly instead of as and when. Next, violation. The delay in the report submission is now defined as the violation of the PMLA. Then we have the client due diligence requirements. It was amended to include the verification of identity within a reasonable time, reliance on any third party, rules for beneficial owners determination, and a risk based CDD for existing clients. Then the additional documents which are officially valid documents like Aadhaar or voter were added for simplified due diligence. Then for account closures, provisions for the closure of existing account if KYC documents are unavailable were added in the amendments. Then the central KYC registry and its procedure was added. Digital KYC procedure was also added. Then how the acceptance of equivalent eKYC document was included, and OVDs were redefined, and eKYC authentication by Aadhaar based was permitted. There are also amendment for identification procedures. So basically the amendment gave us rules on how to identify the beneficial owner of any depository receipt or equity shares of another permitted jurisdiction of a company which has been incorporated in India. Next, the new regulators in PMLR, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs were added regarding dealers in precious metals and stones and real estate agents. So they were added as the new regulators. Next, we have the provisions for the prevention of money laundering rules. So the client due diligence required for the account based relationships and non-account holder transaction is specified. Also, the documents required for any individual and all different types of entities is also specified. Next, it also specifies the officially valid documents required for identity and address verification. The procedures for obtaining officially valid documents and live photograph of a customer via application is also mentioned. It is a process of digital KYC. Then different norms for determining the beneficial owners of various legal persons and arrangements is described in the provisions of the PMLR. Then it is also described about the central KYC records registry and the provisions for central repository for KYC records in digital form, assigning a unique KYC or the know your client identifier. Also, the requirements for periodic reports to FIU IND and suspicious transaction reports including timelines is mentioned in the rules. Then it also specifies the requirements for the suspicious transaction reports. Then the types of businesses which are considered for the purpose of the suspicious transaction report is given in the rules of the provision. Then it prescribes the particulars to be included in the transaction records of any customer. Then it also gives the period for record retention and the types of records which needs to be maintained for client identity and different types of transactions. So basically it gives an idea about the maintenance of records. Then a whole-time director is designated by a regulatory entity which is responsible for ensuring the fulfillment of the chapter 4 of the PMLR obligations. So it gives the definition of a designated director. Then it also gives definition about the principal officer, an officer who is designated by the regulated entity and is responsible for the timely submission of the reports and information to FIU IND. Then it gives about the small account provisions and including procedures and restrictions in a small account. Then it requirement to assess the money laundering terrorist financing risks based on clients, countries and products, services and transaction is also given. And this PML rules establishes the basis for the RBI guidelines on KYC AML of banks. Next we have the UAPA or the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967. So this act was amended by the UAPA Amendment Act 2008 to include legislative measures for combating financing of terrorism in compliance with the UN Security Council resolutions 1267 and 1373. So this UAPA, it criminalizes terrorist acts and raising of funds for them. The act provides for the attachment and seizure of properties connected with terrorist activities, and it was amended in 2004, 8, 13 and 19 to enhance the effectiveness and meet the FATF standards. Now we'll discuss about some of the sections related to our AML KYC chapter. First is the section 15 of the Offence of Terrorist Act. So this act defines terrorist act as one performed with the intent or likelihood to threaten the unity, integrity, security, economic security or sovereignty of India or to strike terror. Specific actions include using bombs, weapons, firearms, lethal weapons, chemicals or hazardous substances, causing death or injuries to any person, loss, damage or destruction to any property, or disruption of essential supplies of services in India or foreign country. Then it is described as something which causing damage to the monetary stability of India through the production of smuggling or circulation of high quality counterfeit Indian paper currency. It is the currency which imitates or compromises with key security features specified in the third schedule of or coin or any material is also smuggled or circulated. Next, damaging property used for defense or government purposes. Then overawing by criminal force or the show of criminal force to affect any public functionary, that is the constitutional authorities or any functionary notified in the official gazette by the central government as public functionary or cause their death. Then detaining, kidnapping or abducting persons to compel a government or international organization to act or abstain from acting or commit a terrorist act which is an offence within the scope of and as defined in any of the treaties specified in the third schedule of the constitution. I'm sorry, this will be second schedule of the UAPA. Next, we have the section 16 or punishment. If the terrorist act results in death, punishment is death or imprisonment for life and also fine. And in any other case, imprisonment is not less than 5 years but may extend to imprisonment for life and fine. Then section 40 discusses about the offence of raising funds for a terrorist organization. Section 40 criminalizes the raising of funds for terrorist organization. A person commits this offence if they invite another person to provide money, property, intending or having reason to suspect it will be used for terrorism, then receive money or property with the intent or suspicious that it will be used for terrorism, then provide money or any other property knowing or suspecting it might be used for terrorism. So, what does this provide money or other property means? So, basically, it means that whether the money or other property is being given, lent, or made available to the persons who are involved in terrorist organizations, and it means whether the transaction is for consideration or not, and some crucial legal inclusion is included in the transaction. That means the value is covered by the definition whether it was exchanged for something equivalent, like through sale deed or a service it provided or a loan given to the terrorist organization or persons related to it, or it can be something else like received it as a gift or inherited the property or transfer without a sale transaction, or it also can be funds raised or collected through the production, smuggling, or circulation of high quality counterfeit Indian currency. Then the section 40 part 2 describes the punishment, which is the imprisonment for a term not exceeding 14 years or fine or both of those. Also, punishment for raising funds for terrorist act is mentioned in section 17. It includes rigorous imprisonment for a term not less than 5 years, but which also may be extended to life, and also fine is included. The section 51A gives the government powers to attach or freeze funds or financial assets of specified individuals or entities. So basically it empowers the central government to freeze, seize, or attach funds, financial assets, or economic resources held by or at the direction of individuals or entities suspected of being engaged in terrorism. The government also has the power to prohibit any individual or entity from making assets available to the listed or suspected individuals or entities, also prevent the entry or transit through India of such individuals or entities. The procedural details were initially contained in the August 2009 order. Then it was replaced by the procedure for implementation of section 51A of the UAPA, which was dated in February 2nd of 2021. This procedure stipulates reporting requirements for banks and financial institutions regarding freezing and defreezing of funds. Also, the Ministry of Home Affairs has declared 32 entities as banned organization. So, this is it for the second part of this chapter. This is a very important and a huge chapter. So, the third part is also coming very soon. I hope this was helpful to you. So, thank you and all the best for your exam.